Hello, hello. I'm going to hopefully get through this message without coughing or anything like that. I had to take a couple weeks off because my kids had gotten sick and had given it to me. So I don't know if it was cold, flu, or COVID. Not sure, but I lost my voice for over a week. I was coughing. I couldn't talk longer than 10, 15 seconds without coughing fits. So I'm still not 100% perfect. So forgive me if I do any coughing, but I'm just so glad to be able to have my voice back enough that I can do a video because it's been a while. And today I'm going to try and make this a pretty quick video if I can. Of course, it's up to the Lord, but I was right in the middle of making tacos for my kids and they were ready and they ate and I wanted to eat. But the Lord gave me this huge download and he was like, go record now. And I was like, oh, eat first. He's like, no, record now. I was like, oh, okay. So I'm doing the recording as per request, getting the message out. Due to my voice, like I said, my vocal cords, I can't talk for too long. And I also want to go eat, but I'm just going to try and get this message out the way the Lord gave it to me before too much time goes by. Okay, so with that said, this message that the Lord gave me was just about 10, 15 minutes ago. It's in regards to the chosen ones. It's another chosen one update. So I've said in past words that as the Lord revealed more and more to the chosen one, being a chosen one is quite involved. There's a lot involved with being a chosen one. It's not just these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 things. It's very complex and very convoluted, right? And so there's a lot of layers and things that are involved with being a true blue chosen one. And as a result, the Lord's been pulling back each layer and revealing to me, here's another layer. And then he gives me the download and then the video, I make the video. Then a week or two later, another layer, or however long it may be, a month later, another layer, make the video. So as we're journeying through this chosen one journey and we're getting deeper and deeper into the base of the onion, which is like he's showing me like an onion, you start on the outside layers first, right? And as you go, you get deeper to the heart of like the root of the onion. And so the Lord is saying is that that's what this last year has been since I've been making the videos on the channels. It's been pulling back the layers of being a chosen one, getting closer and closer to the heart of the root of it, the heart of it, right? And how complex it is. So as we're getting, we've shed layer 1, layer 2, layer 3, layer 4. And of course, the layers are almost never ending. It's very infinite and complex. But as we're narrowing down to the heart of it, we're getting more understanding of what exactly being the chosen one all entails, right? So in this video, I'm going to talk a little bit candidly about my own personal story. The Lord has given me the green light to go ahead and do that. This is not a testimony per se, maybe I guess a little bit, but it's more so better. The Lord wants me to share my personal involvement, my personal relation, so that I'm able to explain the video in a more understanding manner, if that makes sense. So again, if you're not a true chosen one, this video is not for you. If you are a stalker on my channel, this video is not for you. I know who you are. These videos are for those who are truly chosen, and they're timeless, right? So it's whenever somebody comes across it when they need to. So the Lord gave me a pretty big download and was just telling me that as we're journeying through this more and we're starting to see, it's kind of like birth pains start out, far apart, the contractions far apart. But as the baby draws closer to its birth time, the time of birth, the contractions come closer and closer together and they get stronger and more intense and stronger and more intense, right? It's the same kind of analogy that we may not necessarily see things right now as chosen ones. Like, we have received so much information, but we're maybe not necessarily seeing in our physical world these things manifesting as of yet, okay? But I'm personally having a hard time because the Lord has given me so much information in the spiritual world, between Him and I, right? He talks to me pretty much every single day. Not everything he tells me is worthy of a video, right? But he talks to me every single day about everything, right? And he talks to me about my personal journey, my individual journey of my own, but also the collective journey of the chosen ones, right? And I've come to discover that he's chosen me as a vessel. I've been chosen since birth for my assignments, and I have many of them. But he's also specifically chosen me to speak on being a chosen one in these videos. So he uses me as his mouthpiece, where he gives me the information, tells me to do it. He sifts through some things I'm supposed to put out, some things I'm supposed to keep to myself. When I get the green light from him to go ahead and make it public, I make the video, I post it, and it's there and available, right? So he's saying that with me individually, there's things that he's shown me in the spiritual world over time. And just like those birth pains, it's drawing closer and closer and closer. Even though you don't actually physically see the baby coming out yet, it's not physically time. Like say the baby's birth time is say 11 p.m. and it's 10:30. We're a half hour away, but you're aware as a woman. Now, men might not understand, but as a woman, you're aware, and maybe even men, if they've seen a woman in labor, that it's on its way. Like you just know it's on its way. Yeah, sure, it could be 10 more minutes, could be 2 more hours, but you just know that it's on its way. The woman knows for sure, and whoever is around her can tell just by what they're picking up externally, right? It's kind of the same analogy where even though we haven't actually physically seen the baby yet, it hasn't manifested. Of course, I'm using the baby as a symbolism. It hasn't manifested itself yet. We know that the time is drawing closer and closer. We can feel it. We can sense it, right? And those that are chosen ones can sense it all the more, okay? So the Lord is telling me, I knew that people in my personal life, my family members, my partner, my ex friends and associates, right? Just people that have known me throughout my life, even those who've just had minor contact with me. Throughout my entire life of being a chosen one, I've had people in my life who've been karmic, right? They've represented the dark side, they're wicked, they're evil. Now, I don't want to say like to their heart, they're all children of Satan. I'm not saying that. But maybe you as a chosen one can relate. I know a lot of chosen ones can, that it seems like you're the square peg in the round hole. You're the odd man out. Where throughout your life, whether it's been a constant relationship, like a family member, like a sibling or a parent or a spouse, or whether it's been just someone who comes and goes like an acquaintance, someone you've known on and off for 10, 20, 30 years. And even just people you don't even associate with intimately, you just work with them, right? You've been at your job for 2 months or 6 months or 2 years. Just pretty much anyone longer than a hi, hello, how are you doing, that contacts a chosen one and contacts them on a continual basis can fall into this category where you might call them narcissists, right? They express narcissistic tendencies. So much so that even you yourself perhaps even acted narcissistic here and there. You're not a narcissist. If you're a chosen one, you're not a narcissist. The two can't exist. It's like being hot and cold at the same time. The two can't exist at the same time. But you have been in the world until you got on your journey with the Lord. So, and around these people. And these people are narcissistic and they're of the world and they're easily used by Satan. And for the most part, they're not chosen neither, as the biggest thing of all. So that's what's made you the odd one out. You've known that something's different about you all your whole life. Yes, it is. You've been chosen. You didn't know that maybe until recent years, but that's what it's been. They knew something was different about you too. And that's what it was that you were chosen. Now you know this now, right? You've come to discover this. The Lord has enlightened you on this already, okay? So now you can see that throughout your life, whoever these relationship positions are played by, these people have represented being used as puppets from Satan, one way or another. Some of them are children of Satan, and others of them aren't. They're kind of what we'd call lukewarm. I made a video a couple weeks back about which category are you, child of Satan, child of God, or lukewarm, kind of in between, right? a lot of the players close into, like, because you being chosen, you haven't had pure, true, wicked children of Satan close to you because the Lord won't allow that. Maybe you've had encounters, but it's never been that direct, okay? But for the most part, the people around you have had a bit of good and a bit of evil. They can go either way. They could be saved and delivered by the Lord and be on the Lord's team like you are, or they can just go all the way for Satan, right? And turn pure, full wicked, right? But the Lord has maybe made it so that you've seen the children of Satan in your lifetime. You've had encounters here or there, brush ups with them. But for the most part, those that are in your immediate circle, those who are in your immediate life that get more than one or two, like that are privy to several encounters with you, would be more or less considered lukewarm. They wouldn't be considered on God's team or Satan's team per se. They're kind of in between. Some of them maybe even profess that they grew up Christian. You know, say your spouse, they grew up with a Christian background, or their mom's born again believer, or say maybe your parents were going to church when you were a child, you know, but yet at the same time, simultaneously, you're picking up on these narcissistic qualities, right? Now, because of these, you being the odd man out, the one out of the 50, say you have 50 people in your life, could be more or less, but just as a number, you're one out of the 50 people. You are chosen for many reasons. Like we've talked about many different layers to being chosen, but the Lord is addressing today that one of those layers to the core, and he's made me realize this, he's revealed this to me today. I have known that I have a purpose to play in general, like in my life, in my immediate family, and in the world around me, those who come around me, right? I know that. However, the Lord went deeper with it today and said, the people closest to me, okay, and the people closest to you, because he wants me to make a video about it, are dependent on you being chosen and you coming to know the Father, okay? They're dependent on it. Now, what am I talking about? Well, going back to what I was talking about narcissists, and about my own personal example. So with myself, I have a sibling, okay? My sibling has for many years, since we were teens, been on the streets, you know, into the drug scene, things like that, right? I have prayed for him nightly now. I've always had this inkling in the back of my mind that he's going to turn his life around and get back straight again, okay? But the years have been going by, the decades, and he hasn't yet. We've seen like some false hope, but then no. The Lord has led me to pray for him specifically and focus on praying for him every night for the last 6 months now, okay? So every night for the last 6 months, I pray for this specific sibling of mine that he will get clean and get better. And as of today, it hasn't happened yet, okay? However, I have seen from the past moments where it seems like it's possible. So I don't have completely zero hope at all, because I have seen false starts in the past. So I know it is possible, but at this time I haven't seen this prayer, this manifest. Now in the spiritual, the Lord has confirmed to me that he's going to answer this prayer of mine. This is why he led me to do it. Now, if somebody else was praying for him, it would maybe reach God's ears, but they don't have the spiritual rank, the spiritual weight that a chosen one has that's following the Lord. Sorry, my voice is starting to go. The chosen ones that follow the Lord, as the Bible says, the prayers of a righteous man availeth much. So therefore, whether you're male or female, if you're a righteous person, your prayers they hold weight, okay? So because of the fact that I'm chosen, if I didn't wake up to who I am as a chosen one and come to know the Father as I have in these last few years, and I continued being in and of the world like I was 5-10 years ago, my sibling would not have ever gotten clean, okay? Now, maybe there's a chance, I can't say for certain, but from what the Lord told me is that no, his redemption, salvation, coming clean, his turnaround in life hinges on me as the chosen one coming to discover who I am, establishing my relationship with the Lord, becoming a righteous person and praying every night for 6+ months. That's what it's going to take. That's what it entails to make this ship turn around, okay? Other people can pray, they have been praying, but they gave up because they didn't see any movement, right? And the Lord is saying that it's not that the Lord wasn't listening to them or didn't care. Some people's prayers fall on deaf ears when it comes to the Lord because they don't hold any spiritual rank, especially if they're wicked and they work for Satan. If they allow themselves to be used as a puppet for Satan anyway. But some people have very strong weight when it comes to the Lord, meaning that what do you hear easier? A voice from 2 feet away or a voice from 100 feet away, right? It's the same thing. The people that are far from the Lord are likened to a voice to the Lord 100 feet away. The people that are close to the Lord are likened to a voice that's a foot or two away. So the Lord can hear the chosen ones, especially if they're walking with him, if they're righteous, if they've turned over their life to him, right? If they've been saved and born again and they're delivered from evil and stuff. The Lord can hear the prayers of a chosen one as if it's whispered right into his ear directly, okay? But there's more to it than that. Like I said, all these layers. The chosen one has to actually live a righteous lifestyle. They have to actually be close to the Lord. They can't just be half and half, half in the world, half not, loosey-goosey, whatever. They have to actually work for the Lord, right? And fulfill their assignments in order to hold that resonance with the Lord. So because I myself have done that, the prayers that I pray are extremely loud to the Lord, and it's in the destiny for me to come to know that I am a chosen one and to walk with the Lord. Therefore, in sequence, the destiny is for my sibling to eventually have his life turned around for good. It couldn't happen when he was 20, when he was 30, when he was 40. No, it couldn't have happened then because I wasn't aware of my ranking and having my relationship with the Lord at that time, right? So it was dependent on me coming to know who I am. So that's just one example, okay? Now, that's example 1. Example 2, leading into the rest of my family members. My family members are good people, even self-admitted Christians, as so they say. However, they have been being able to be puppeted by Satan, okay? Because they've been being able to be puppeted by Satan, there's been an impasse between me and them in different regards, right? But because simultaneously, along with praying for my sibling directly, I also pray for my family members, there's going to be past wounds between them and myself that are going to be healed because, again, my righteous prayers are being heard and subsequently answered. So they're going to receive healing for themselves, and also I'll receive that healing for myself, and we will heal the past crevices and wounds and divides that have been created between us because of the fact, again, that I am chosen. Had I not been chosen or been chosen but not decided to walk with the Lord and stayed in the world and continued to be a lukewarm person and get used by Satan as well, the Lord has revealed that my family and I would have not only not mended fences from the past things, but we would have continued to just be in the positions that we were in the past before, when I was still in the world. So it wouldn't have led to anything fruitful, right? So how can I explain it even better? So Lord is trying to use an example of like a wound, say a physical cut on the outside. So say you have a cut on the outside, but you're not aware that you have the cut on the outside. If you're not aware of it, you can continue to bump it, hit it, scratch it. It can get infected. You're not minding it, so you're not dressing it, you're not cleaning it, nothing like that, right? So that wound can easily get infected or easily get reopened or turn into a deeper injury. All kinds of things can happen to it. It is subjected to the elements, right? Because of the fact that it's there, but it's not being made aware of, right? But when you are aware of a wound, a cut on your leg or your arm, say, and you go to the doctor, say if you need to, you get stitches, you clean it yourself, you keep up with cleaning it, you constantly every day tend to it, put ointment on it, put band-aids on it, things like that. It may take some time, but eventually after a couple of weeks, say, or a couple of months, depending, it's going to heal, right? The only difference between scenario A and scenario B was that in both scenarios you had the same cut, or wound, but in scenario B, you were mindful of it. So because you were mindful, you were diligent, and because you were diligent and you focused on it and you treated it and you healed it with your own, it took God to heal it, actually heal it, right? You can't heal it yourself, but because you were taking healing measures towards it, paying attention to it, minding it, the Lord took note of that and therefore subsequently healed it for you, right? And now it's healed up. But again, had you have not done that and you just either ignored it or you didn't care about it or you didn't know about it, that wound would have A, never gotten healed up, and B, possibly gotten infected and gotten worse, right? So the Lord is saying that's an example of what he's trying to say is that, but this is internal. So internally, because you being chosen, you've become aware of it. You're aware of the wounds inside that have been created in yourself and in others. Because of going to the Lord and fulfilling destiny and being obedient to the Lord and focusing on the Lord and receiving healing from the Lord, he is then, because you've took the due diligence, you've took it upon yourself, right? You've given it the attention it needs. The Lord has seen those actions. So therefore he is healing those internal wounds in yourself and in others that are associated with you, even if they're past ones from a long time ago, because of the fact that you've tended to it, right? Just like a gardener tends to the garden. If you just ignore the garden, it's going to get overgrown with weeds, right? And then pests will come and things like that. But if the gardener tends to the garden on a regular basis, then flowers will grow and the weeds will be choked out, right? It's the same idea, is that because you as a chosen one are tending to yourself and your relationship with the Lord and those that have come into contact with you, you're doing the work, but the Lord is ultimately having the flowers grow. He's healing the wounds. He's doing the supernatural part of things to make things come to completion how they were destined to be, right? If that gardener didn't get hired to tend the garden and nobody tended that garden, it would never get touched. It took someone who was chosen for the job of the gardener to do the job, right? You were chosen as the person. I was chosen as the odd man out, the one out of the 50, the square peg in the round hole, if you will, to be who I am for a purpose, for a mission. And the mission was to heal others around me. Now, I knew in the past, because I've made videos about this before, I knew in the past that this was part and parcel of this calling. But what was so remarkable about today was, with the revelation of today, is that the Lord is saying is that even though for myself and for you, and those are just two examples, there's more examples, right? There's people that I want to know to come to know the Lord, and I've been praying for them for months for them to come to know the Lord, and they haven't come to know the Lord yet. But the Lord confirmed to me that even though I may not see that in the physical world, that's not true. He has been bringing these people to him. My prayers have been manifesting and being answered. Maybe not in the physical, but in the spiritual they are, okay? I haven't come close enough to these people in recent times to be able to verify if this is really what it is or not. But the Lord but from what I see, I don't see it, right? But the Lord has confirmed to me that no, there's more behind the scenes, that it is happening behind the scenes. And I just need to trust in that it's happening supernaturally. I mean, like the wind blows, but we don't see it, right? It doesn't mean it's not blowing. It is. Just because we don't see it, it's still there. So the Lord is saying he's moving like the wind supernaturally, right? We may not see it, but it's happening. And eventually, after the wind is done blowing, you go outside and you see everything blown around. So you know that the wind happened. Even if you didn't physically see the wind blowing, you know the wind blew because you see the disarray of objects everywhere that the wind blew around. It's the same thing as that when the Lord is done blowing his healing winds into these situations, You may not see it at the time that it's transpiring, but you're going to go out and look at the appointed time, and you're going to see before your very eyes that your prayers have been answered. So if, say in your case, because everybody's life is different, of course, right? And our prayers are different. But say, for instance, in your life, if you're a true chosen one, and you find that, say, you've been praying for your spouse or a family member or a child or something like that, and you've been praying for their healing, whether it be physical healing, financial healing, emotional healing, healing from an addiction, healing from a sickness, a disease, whatever it may be, the Lord has led you and guided you to be praying fervently. Thank you, Lord. Fervently. It's not a word I even use. Praying fervently for said person on a regular basis, right? But you haven't at this point seen the transpiration of this happening, whether it just be because the Lord's been kind of hiding it from you, or because you haven't been in contact with this spouse or this family member or this child or whatever it may be. But the Lord is using me today. He reassured me today that He is in fact answering my prayers. He has been answering them for the last little bit now. And He's going to continue to work. His work's not done yet, right? And everything unfolds in its own timeline. My timeline in my scenarios might be a year. Your timeline might be 3 months, right? The Lord answers the prayers in the timeline that is delegated per individual, per situation, okay? But the Lord is just leading me 2 things. He led to me to tell me that there's more too, but I won't get into it all, but that several of the prayers that He's led me to pray on a regular nightly basis, that even though I think are not being answered because I haven't seen any manifestation of it as of yet with my own eyes, that's because it's not done. The wind's not done blowing yet, but eventually it will be done, and when it's done, I will see it. And B, because of in the past, I've maybe thought I've had false hopes, false starts. I've made these thoughts in the past, these prayers in the past, and haven't seen anything manifest. So that's causing me to just think, well, I did it again and I didn't see it, so therefore that it must not be there, right? It's just like the Lord's telling me about when they were fishing on the boat with Jesus, and they were like, we've been fishing all night, we're not going to catch anything. And Jesus said, try the other side. And they didn't believe Him at first, right? Because false hope, false starts, so many false starts of trying again. But when Jesus said, try again, just do the other side this time, go the other way, they did, and therefore they had a big catch, right? Jesus is saying it's the same thing in this scenario, is that you maybe have done this before already. You fished that side and it came up empty time and time again. So that's also a part of it too, and the Lord understands that. But because the difference is that back then, it's not that you weren't chosen, you've been chosen since birth, but back then you maybe weren't aware you were chosen. Back then maybe you were still in the world. Back then you weren't as close to the Lord as you are today. Back then you didn't go as fervently as you are now. Back then your prayers were heard, but maybe from 100 feet away instead of 2 feet away, like I already said, right? You didn't have the resonance with the Lord back then that you do now. But if you're a true chosen one and you've been on the path and journey with the Lord for some time now, and you're a righteous person, you live righteously, and the Lord considers you righteous, just rest assured with the fact that a righteous person's prayers hold weight, more weight than the average, right? So even though those around you are just average, they're averagely righteous, the prayers aren't going to hold the resonance. They're not chosen. They're just average people. They're not going to hold the resonance, right? It takes you specifically. The Lord is using you as the vessel to pray and pour into those closest to you. He purposely led lukewarm, narcissistic type people that are puppets for Satan into your life and into your surroundings. He allowed them to see you weird and you to see yourself weird, and know that while you were zigging, they were zagging, and while they were zagging, you were zigging. He allowed this division to happen, because had you have been mixed in with them, their faults, their flaws, the things that they needed healing on would have just continued, and it would have gotten worse and worse and worse. You needed to be the odd one out so that you could be the chosen one, chosen by the Lord specifically, to be the vessel that he was going to use eventually down the road, like he is, to be able to use your righteousness and your chosen status to be able to go and pray to the Lord only after you left the world and were living in the righteous steps you're supposed to live in, so that then you could finally reach the level of resonance with the Lord that was required. Say the level for the Lord to start moving on these prayers that you've always had in your mind was a level 10. Maybe up until recent, you were only top performing at a level 7 or 8. Well, that wasn't enough. You needed to go through everything you've been through in order to reach your level 10 point, which you have, just like the woman who's crowning the baby. It's not time when she's 2, 3, 4 centimeters dilated. She has to go through it, whether it takes her 2 hours or 8 hours, whatever the time frame may be, to get to the 8, 9, 10 centimeters before she can actually start to crown and push, right? And so that's what the Lord is saying, is that you needed to get to where you are now to hold the weight that you have at this time, okay? It took you. So all those people, the spouse that the Lord has led you to pray for, the children that the Lord has led you to pray for, the family members, whether they be siblings, parents, grandparents, whoever, that the Lord has led you to pray for, it took you, not them, it took you getting to where you needed to be. The Lord needed 9 centimeters dilation for the baby to be ready to come out. The Lord needed level 10 resonance for him to hear and answer and move on your prayers, okay? So the longer that you take or took to get to where you need to get for the Lord to move, that's how long it's going to take for these situations to stay. So if you have a family member that's struggling, you've been praying for them, and you really want them to get, clean or delivered or saved or healed or whatever, it's on you. You know what I'm saying? You are the one that needs to focus. So the more that you get closer to the Lord, the more that you leave the world behind and the worldly ways, the more that you focus on your own internal righteousness, the more that you get right with the Lord, the more that the Lord is going to draw closer to you and then blow his healing winds on those said situations, okay? Just like the woman in labor, the more that she goes through the labor and puts up with the pain of the contractions and such, the closer and closer she gets to that crowning moment, right? It can't happen in the beginning. It has to come at the appointed time, but it's on her. Nobody else can push the baby out. She's the one chosen to do it in that moment. She's the one that the Lord chose to impregnate. She's the one that the Lord chose to deliver that baby, right? But as ready as she may be, it takes the supernatural push, the supernatural timing and winds of the Lord to say, okay, now it's time. She could be 9 centimeters for, 12 hours. It's when the Lord says, okay, now's the time. It's just like that wind could blow for 10 minutes. It could blow for 2 days. It's when the Lord says, okay, now it's time to stop. And then the wind stops. Then you go out and see everything all disheveled and moved around, right? So it's the same thing. The Lord will dictate when the level has been reached of where it's required of you as a chosen one to have him start moving on your behalf. But he's saying that for myself, he's been answering some of these prayers, and some of them are still early. It's still only 2, 3 centimeters dilated. It's not time yet. Some of them are going to take a little more time. But over the course, I predict over the course of the next 6 months, could be less, but between today to the next 6 months in that time frame, could take 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. But within that time frame, you're going to see the physical manifestation of the prayers that you're praying right now today and the prayers you were praying last month or the month before that. Eventually, that wind is going to stop blowing and you're going to see what the wind did, while you were inside waiting for it to stop, right? You're going to eventually see it. So the Lord is saying, rest assured that if this message resonates with you, if it's making sense to you, and again, this is why I say these messages are for true chosen ones, because only true chosen ones that can relate to how I speak will have ears to hear. Those that come to just like mock or to copy or to stalk or whatever it may be, not only do these messages not apply to you, but they're not going to make any sense to you. And what you will take out of it will be a worldly perception because you're in the world, right? So only those who are truly chosen will understand what I'm saying. But the Lord revealed to me, and I was very grateful for the revelation, that some of these prayers that the Lord has led me to pray for the last 6 months, I'm saying to him, not today, but I have been saying to him in the last couple of weeks here and there, Lord, is this even is this doing anything? From what I've heard and seen, there's been nothing, no change, but maybe I'm wrong because I'm not in close proximity with these situations at this time. So maybe there is something going on. Like I say, you hear the wind or you see it, but you can't physically see the wind. You can hear it or know what's going on, but you don't see it, right? So I haven't actually seen any witness to any developments in these prayers that the Lord has led me to say, right? But the Lord revealed to me today while I was making the tacos, he just told me, he's like, I'm working on the prayers. And he showed me, because I say several prayers. And again, I'm not going to get into them all, but I listed 2 of them at least that I have been praying about fervently for a while now. He told me, he said, I am answering the prayers at this time, and I'm going to be answering the prayers. So some of them are going to be unfolding, like for me too, over this next 6 months. These situations take time. It takes time for someone to heal, right? It takes time for things to turn around. It takes time for something that's been happening, that wound that's been festered or ignored or neglected for, say, 10, 12, 13, 20 years. It takes time to heal that, right? The wind doesn't blow for 5 minutes. The wind will blow on and off for maybe a day or 2, right? As it's doing what it needs to do. So the Lord is saying that these things take time. So he was reassuring me that and wanted me to reassure you of that. And that just because it's not happening at the snap of our fingers, or that we can see, because it is going on behind the scenes in the background, whether we realize it or not, it's happening supernaturally. He told me that. It's happening supernaturally. So in my case and in yours, some of these people you've been praying for, they have been starting to think different and feel different and perceive things differently. And thoughts have started to generate that weren't there in the past. Feelings, actions that weren't there in the past. And they don't even necessarily understand it at this point, because in some cases it's still early, but in others it's because it's through supernatural means. So therefore it's not seen by yourself or by them, right? Just like the wind. We don't see the baby starting to descend out through, the canal like it's supposed to. We don't see that. We just know from what we're seeing on, what we're experiencing around that person that's having the baby, right? That's how we're able to know that the time is coming, right? But the Lord is working in the body supernaturally to make that happen, right? It's not something that the mother can do on her own, right? And I know this as someone who's already had 2 children, when the Lord says that this is when it is, this is when it is, okay? So again, some of these situations could take a little bit of time, or some could take a longer bit of time, but just know that I take just happiness in the fact and satisfaction in knowing that the Lord they haven't fallen on deaf ears, that he has been listening to them and acting and moving on them. But he confirmed to me, he said, not everybody's prayers get answered. And that I had to jump through several hoops to earn that spot, to earn that righteousness, that resonance that I now have with him, in order for him to entertain my prayers. I've always been chosen, and he knew what I was going to be eventually, but I didn't have that position or that ranking, 10 years ago. So even though I may have prayed for said things back when, I maybe gave up because I didn't see them being answered. And that's not because the Lord doesn't answer prayer, but because I was at a level 5 or 6 when I needed to be at a level 10. The woman can't push the baby out when she's 4 centimeters dilated. She has to be at 9, And so it happens, like things take how they're supposed to in the Lord's divine timing and all things, right? So the Lord is confirming to me that He is answering my prayers. He has been answering my prayers, and He will continue to answer my prayers as long as I continue to maintain my righteous standing and ranking with the Lord, right? Because as long as I am righteously, internally and externally living that righteous lifestyle, and then coupled with the fact that I'm a true chosen one, that holds weight as well. These two things coming together are a powerhouse, right? And then also the Lord directing me as to what to do. So He's saying that this was my revelation for me personally, for myself individually, but also that He wanted me to make this word and to share this out to the collective of chosen ones, that if you're a true chosen one and this message is resonating with you, your prayers are being answered behind the scenes supernaturally. You are going to see within the next 6 months or less manifestations of said prayers. Things aren't going to look the same in the next 4, 5, 6 months as they did last year. You know what I'm saying? Before you started the prayers, before the Lord led you to praying. You're going to see some changes. Just like how everything was neat and tidy, then the wind came and blew and did its thing. And after the wind went away, I didn't see it, but the wind went away and it was gone. And I looked outside and I saw everything in disarray, right? So I knew the wind blew it around. That's what the Lord is saying, is that you're going to see in the physical, you're going to see that something's happened and changed. But the Lord is saying, He knows what I mean as an example, but He's saying it won't be in disarray. It will be better than what it was. So when the wind blows, things are messed up, right? But the Lord is saying it's the opposite. That's a correct example, but that things will be put back in place. So imagine a wind blowing, but instead of things being messed up, everything goes back in order where it's supposed to be, actually better order than it was originally. That's what the Lord is saying. So in my case, going back to my example, praying for my sibling right now, their life looks like the wind blowing everything all around. But the Lord is saying He's answering my prayer in regards to them, and that in the next 6 months, I'm going to physically see that their life has been put back in place. So it's been a disarray mess for the last, 20, 30 years. But I'm going to see it be for the first time in a long time, an actual organized, put together, tidy place, if that makes sense. And so the Lord is saying you're going to see the same thing, right? Just like going back to the healing of the wound, the cut on your arm example, once it's healed up, it's going to go back to normal. Yeah, there might be maybe a scar there, but it's going to go back, depending on the cut, but it's going to go back to how it was before it got injured, right? It's not going to be worse after healing. Do you know what I'm saying? So that's what the Lord is saying, is that He's going to restore said things, these prayers in my life and in yours, to factory setting, back to where it originally was in the beginning. There might be a crack or a scar there, but it's at least not going to be an open, festering wound that is subjected to the elements, right? Like it was previously, right? I hope that makes sense. So I hope this word blesses you. I hope it makes sense. I hope it comes across those who the Lord directs it to come to. Continue to pray. Pray for those that the Lord leads you to, okay? Because those people in your life that you always knew were not on the same page as you and vice versa, that was not an accident. That was on purpose. Because fast forward to where we are now, the stars have aligned and the timing is correct now, that the Lord is having you play your role, play your part as a chosen one. And you were chosen to be you, and they were chosen to be them for you, so that you could come to know you and be the best you, which you're on the journey of, so that in turn you could then turn around and help guide and heal them. You can't heal them. That's what the Lord does. But because of your choices and your ranking as a chosen one and you choosing to leave the world behind and follow the Lord and live righteously, your prayers now hold so much impact that when you now pray for these people, they will be healed through you. So all glory goes to God, of course, but they have you to thank in a roundabout way, because had it not been for you being the chosen one and going through what you've gone through and earning your righteous status with the Lord and your standing with the Lord and your resonance with the Lord, they wouldn't have had somebody with that weight behind them to pray for them, which ultimately led to their overall betterment, their betterment as a person, right? You win as well because the Lord is simultaneously healing you. So say there's some sort of a rift between you and a family member. If you continue to be in the world, say you weren't chosen, the rift would have continued. Say you were chosen, but you chose to continue to stay in the world and allow and be lukewarm and be a puppet for Satan, the rift would have continued. And the Lord is actually saying it actually would have gotten worse. Okay, so however bad it was, whatever the scenario is, put it where it fits. But it would have gotten worse than it was. But because of your chosen status, it was destined to heal one day. And because you chose to leave the world behind and to get close to the Lord and live righteously and do the work and be focused and disciplined and diligent, the Lord has recognized that, and He's chosen you to be the vessel that brings the healing to that rift, to yourself and to this other party. Okay? So you have suffered because of this rift. They have suffered because of this rift. But due to your choices and the Lord working in and through you, you will be healed on your part and they will be healed on their part. And again, this goes, I'm using the word rift, but this goes for fill in the blank. That disease that hurt you and hurt them, that addiction, that, whatever the negative circumstance is, that divorce, whatever, put it in where it fits. It caused you to suffer some sort of trauma or wounding yourself that needed healing, and them. You chose the right path, they chose the left path. If it wasn't for you, they would have continued on their left path and they never would have gotten that healing, period. And had you have not chosen the right path, you also wouldn't have gotten your healing or led them to healing, because of the fact that you wouldn't have had the righteous standing that you have with the Lord. So it's just absolutely amazing, beautiful message. So it's due to the Lord's supernatural grace and healing powers that these people that had narcissistic qualities in your life, that were always walking down the left path and falling down, and you were being hurt in the process, whatever that looks like for you, that is not going to be a factor any longer, as long as you continue to be a righteous person and you continue to be diligent and pray on these situations. The Lord is hearing you. It's resonating with Him. You have weight with Him, and He's already moving on these things. It's for me and it's for you. He's been moving on them. He's going to continue to move on them. You're going to see some transformation. Okay, thanks, Lord. Transformation and transpiring and manifestation of these prayers in the physical world over the next 6 months. So expect to see spouses returning. Expect to see family members turning, getting clean from addiction. Reuniting. Family members reuniting, whatever that looks like. Couples reuniting. Family members, moms, dads, kids, parents and children, children and parents reuniting, people coming to know the Lord that didn't know the Lord prior. Say you've been praying for somebody for, say, 10 years to come to know the Lord, your sibling, your child, your parent, your spouse, and you haven't seen it, you're going to see them coming to know the Lord. You will, and again, this is only for the chosen ones at this point in time. This is what the Lord has told me to say. Those that walk uprightly with the Lord. Okay? This is not for lukewarms. This is not for worldly people. This is for those who are chosen, those who, the Lord has led you to say specific prayers for specific people, even if you didn't want to at the time because of these unhealed wounds, whatever they are, or these false starts or false hopes from the past. You still were obedient to the Lord and did as he asked. You were diligent, you were focused, and you just kept focusing on healing that, focusing on healing that, focusing on healing that. The Lord is saying that your diligence is paying off, has been paying off, and will be paying off. You're going to see, and again, it's not going to be maybe every single thing, in a short amount of time. Some of these things could take longer. The timing is different for everybody. But for myself, the Lord has said that the majority of the prayers that I have been praying, that he's led me to pray, are being answered as we speak in the background supernaturally, and that I'm going to see the physical manifestation of these prayers being answered in my life over the course of the next few months. So I look forward to it. I hope you look forward to it too. Continue praying. I hope this blesses you, and God bless.